First of all, talk about Crockett's dealings with McMahon. What was the scuttlebutt you were hearing from the office? Were you not privy to the business type stuff?
Oh, I was, because Dusty and I traveled together almost exclusively, and we were in Atlantic City or somewhere when they inked the deal and paid the money to buy the time on TBS. And that was the day the lightning bolt really took off. The ride took off, I mean, instantly that day. You know, I remember there's a big fold-out one of the magazines of me and the leather jacket, the, superstar of the Superstation. And it's like all of a sudden we're in every, got the potential to be in almost every home in America from all 50 states, like overnight. And now all the curtains are pulled down, right? There's no territory anymore. There's no we don't cross this boundary. Now we're in everybody's face, in every living room that wants to subscribe, to Turner Broadcasting. They can get it, and it changed the ground rules instantly. I mean, absolutely instantly. Overnight, our business went from, the little engine that thinks it's good and slowly climbing up to went, just up to another level.
Your life personally must change greatly in public now, because of the reach of the Superstation. Are you being bombarded at restaurants, and is it?
You don't go anywhere that you're not recognized. But to that same point, we were wrestling 7 days a week, twice on Saturdays, twice on Sundays, and however many times you worked on a syndicated program. So you're putting in so blasted many hours and days a week into the business, away from your quote-unquote personal life, that, you felt the impact huge when you were on the road, but you were home so few times. It wasn't like you'd be out with your family and couldn't get a moment's peace because you never were out with your family. You didn't have that avenue to do it.
Okay.
The notoriety was instant, absolutely.
Right.
But you were caught up in such a whirlwind, and everybody was caught up in the same whirlwind. It didn't matter where you were at on the card. We all had notoriety instantly. Some greater than others, obviously, but it was the star maker. It was truly a star maker, and had I not had all the foundation that had been laid previous, it would have been too much too fast. I'd been caught. I'd been run over by it. I wouldn't. I mean, I'd been a flash in the pan if that had been the case. Because you can shoot anybody to here, but it's a long fall back down to there if you don't know what you're doing after somebody lets go, your arms and then hold you up.
Everybody is on that same ride, like you said. But I would imagine that, it's just a wild guess, that maybe the appeal from the ladies with some hotel keys and whatnot might be bigger for maybe a Magnum TA than let's say, Ivan Koloff.
Well, yes, and I would say that you would just have to realize that we were like a traveling band of, rock star gypsies to begin with, and even before we had that, we'd created our own thing. We would go to a club or a place or whatever and end up owning it before we left. I mean, you got to realize you have 15 or 20 of us in there, and the local talent doesn't have a whole lot of chance because we're not exactly shy, a little flamboyant. And
Ric Flair at the Bennigans in Charlotte?
I was there when Wahoo picked up the Rio Grande dip and plastered it into some girl's white pantsuit too. So anyway.
That's a new one?
Yeah, that was, it was something to do with a Pac-Man machine and a Crown and Coke. I don't remember what happened, but it was, but all that to say, yes, you got a lot of attention that you wouldn't have otherwise got just on your own, because you were in everybody's home, and of course it doesn't hurt to have Dusty out there continually selling you as the loneliest man in America. Poor Terry, poor Magnum, he just can't, he's just lonely folks. It was ridiculous. It was absolutely nuts.
Did you buy him nice Christmas presents, at least for those?
I did, but I didn't ever send him any of my legal fees that he contributed to later in life. But anyway, yes.
Let's talk about TBS Studios for a minute. It was probably safe to say ill-equipped to handle 35 wrestlers for the tapings. I mean, you guys are like in hallways, and you didn't have adequate dressing space and backroom, backstage areas.
I dressed in somebody's cube. There was a meeting room that we'd use like a green room to go over the show, and then there was like a warehouse little area where the bulk of the guys dressed, and there was just nowhere I would go off and find a cubicle, the unoccupied cubicle, and change clothes there. And frankly, I never worked, typically more than 30 seconds on TV anyway, so it wasn't like I needed to go take a hot shower afterwards. So it was that was a really strange environment for me. It was mostly there about the angle, and of course getting your character over through your interview, and it wasn't about ring time when you were there.
Is there any fear as Georgia is absorbed into Crockett? Is there any fear that there'll be less top spots because there's more competition now, a new band of guys?
Well, my hat's off to Dusty and Jimmy both for this, because they created an atmosphere where every match on the card could potentially be a main event in another city. So if we were running 3 towns in a night, you could have so many main event caliber matches, even with running 3 towns a night, that it was phenomenal. And on our what we call a super show, a big show where we loaded up, literally the opening match was a main event. We didn't have a curtain jerker. Now we would put somebody in that match that was going to set the tone for the night, but typically you had to be on go and be able to just go wide open every night, because the caliber was so high and so good. I mean, you got the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express going on before you. Well, you better, by God, light it up when you go out there next, But I had the luxury at that time of being not a rough baby face. So yeah, I could do all the technical flip-flops and flies and stuff, and the reverse this and that and the other. But they really wanted to see me get ticked off with the heel and lose it and get real physical and take a fight to them. And so it gave me kind of a different flavor where I wasn't having to. I mean, we had guys like Brad Armstrong, one of the incredible technical wrestler, and guys that could just do these amazing things that defied logic, but if you made them believe, like I go back to John Wayne, that if you'd been pushed as far as you could go and then you weren't going to go no more, and then when you came back it was going to be horrendous on everybody around you and within your reach, then that gave you a way to be marketably different. So each of us had to find a little niche to do that, and we had guys like Manny Fernandez, the Raging Bull, who was full of fire and full of just excitement, and of course the Barbarian, and big guys that could really, really go. And I'd put our cards in the 80s up against anything that has come before or after in terms of excitement from bell time to bell time. Yeah, we weren't flying off the top and crashing through tables, but we were only a hair from doing that. If somebody had said that was a good idea, guess what? We'd have been doing it. There wouldn't have been any mats on the floor either, because we didn't have mats on the floor back then. Right. You went over and hit the floor, and if you better hope that you had a room to keep going, because you'd slide so far it'd be insane. When your body was covered with sweat, that's what you wanted to happen. You wanted to hit and slide.